They called it the most barbaric weapon ever created. Enemy commanders begged for it to be banned. Soldiers who faced it said they'd rather die by artillery. What weapon terrified the most disciplined army in World War I so badly they threatened to execute anyone caught using it? The answer changed close-quarters combat forever. Western Front, 1918, Verdun sector. 0347 hours. German stormtroopers moved through the trench system like they'd done it 1,000 times before. Because they had. Room to room, corridor to corridor, they were ghosts. Their close-quarters doctrine was 2 years ahead of everyone else. They had the training, they had the experience, they had the kill ratio to prove it. Then they heard it. A sound no European soldier recognized. CHCK, CHCK, metal on metal, mechanical, deliberate, coming from the darkness ahead. The Americans had arrived with something no one had seen in modern warfare. The Winchester model, 1897, 12-gauge pump-action shotgun. When German intelligence officers saw the first captured specimen, they actually laughed. The report is still in the archives. A hunting weapon for duck and pheasant against trained soldiers with Lugers and Mausers? One officer wrote in his diary, "The Americans bring farming tools to a modern war. This will end quickly." But what the Germans didn't know was that this farming tool could fire 6 shells in under 3 seconds. At distances under 50 feet, it didn't just kill, it erased everything in its path. The math was simple, brutal, devastating. Each 12-gauge shell contained 9 lead pellets. Each pellet was .33 caliber, the same diameter as the German army's standard rifle round. One trigger pull sent 9 of them screaming downrange at 1,200 feet per second. But here's what made it a nightmare: spread pattern. At 15 feet, typical trench distance, those 9 pellets covered a cone roughly 4 feet wide. At 30 feet, 6 feet wide, there was nowhere to dodge, nowhere to take cover. The corridor itself became a killing zone. Se inscreva para mais histórias de armas que mudaram a guerra para sempre. 2 vídeos por dia. The first real engagement happened at 4:02 hours. Documented. A German assault team, 8 elite stormtroopers from the 5th Guard Division, breached an American position near Belleau Wood. These weren't conscripts, these were the men who'd perfected trench fighting in Verdun. 2 years of experience, 400 successful raids between them. They expected bayonets, maybe pistol shots, hand-to-hand combat where their training mattered. Private James Anderson from Ohio was waiting with his Winchester. The lead German entered the corridor. 15 feet of darkness between them. Anderson's hands were shaking. This was his first combat. His training instructor's voice echoed in his head. "Don't aim. Point, like pointing your finger." Chag, the pump-action sound echoed once. The Germans froze. That sound meant nothing to them yet. It would haunt their nightmares for the rest of the war. Anderson pulled the trigger. The muzzle flash lit up the entire corridor for a fraction of a second. In that flash, the lead German saw 9 pellets spreading toward him in a cone pattern. There was nowhere to move in that confined space. The physics were absolute. Then 6 more times in rapid succession. Boom! Ch, ch, boom! Ch, 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 ch. The sound became a rhythm, a mechanical death march. When the smoke cleared, actual smoke, hanging in the still trench air, smelling of burnt powder and copper, all 8 German soldiers were down. Anderson hadn't moved from his position. Hadn't even aimed carefully. At that distance, in that confined space, aiming was optional. The American casualty count 0. Anderson would later write to his mother, "I don't know if I'm a soldier or a butcher. The weapon doesn't give them a chance. It's not war, it's something else." Se inscreva para ver como soldado mudou doutrina militar. But what they didn't know was this was just the beginning. Within 72 hours, German field commanders started seeing a pattern. Units engaging American positions were taking unprecedented casualties in close-quarters fighting. Not 10% higher, not 20%. Casualties had tripled. The reports coming back were impossible. Single American soldiers stopping entire assault teams. Corridors that should take 5 minutes to clear being held for 30 minutes by one man with one weapon. German tactical doctrine had no answer for this. Their Stormtrooper manual, the most advanced close-quarters combat guide in existence, had procedures for machine guns, grenades, flamethrowers. Nothing about facing someone who could put 54 projectiles downrange in the time it took to work a bolt-action rifle once. Then the psychological reports started arriving. These were harder to quantify, harder to put in official documents, but they were there. Soldiers were hesitating before entering American-held corridors. Combat veterans, men who'd survived the Somme, Passchendaele, Verdun, were freezing at doorways. Some were requesting transfers, others were simply refusing to advance. One report from a German medical officer described a new phenomenon: soldiers with no physical wounds claiming they couldn't continue. When pressed, they all described the same thing. The sound, that mechanical sound, tchk, tchk, and then everything in front of you just disappears. The German High Command had a problem. Their most effective tactic, Stormtrooper infiltration, was being neutralized by a weapon that cost $42 retail in the United States. $42 versus 2 years of specialized training and combat experience. The equation had changed completely. But here's what made it worse. The Americans were adapting faster than the Germans could counter. Within weeks, U.S. forces developed new tactics specifically around the trench gun. 2-man teams, 1 shotgunner for close quarters, 1 rifleman for distance support. They called it hammer and anvil. The shotgun was the hammer, everything else was the anvil. Results were measurable, documented, undeniable. American units equipped with trench guns showed casualty rates 40% lower than units without them. 40%. In trench warfare, where casualty rates could hit 80 or 90%, a 40% reduction meant entire squads lived instead of died. But the numbers revealed something nobody saw coming. The 40% wasn't evenly distributed. In open trench fighting, the advantage was maybe 15, 20%. But in confined spaces, bunkers, dugouts, communication trenches, the casualty reduction hit 70, even 80%. The tighter the space, the more absolute the shotgun's dominance. German intelligence analyzed captured American training manuals. What they found changed everything. The Americans weren't just using the shotgun. They were building entire tactical systems around it. Document 247A, captured October 1918, described shotgun doctrine developed by Sergeant Daniel Daly, a Marine with 2 Medals of Honor who'd become the informal prophet of close-quarters combat. Daly's method was psychological warfare disguised as tactics. Make them hear it before they see it. The pump action, CH key, that sound travels. It echoes. In a trench, you can hear it from 50 yards away. By the time you round the corner, they've already imagined what's coming. Half the battle is won before you fire a shot. But here's the detail that made German commanders furious. Daly taught his Marines to pump the action even when it wasn't necessary. Chamber already loaded. Pump it anyway. Let them hear it. Create phantom shotgunners. Make the enemy think every corner, every doorway had that weapon waiting. One German after-action report documented the paranoia. American positions with 2 shotguns reported. Upon capture, only 1 shotgun found. Men swear they heard multiple pump actions from different locations. Unable to confirm. Psychological effect pronounced. But what they didn't know was that Daly was about to prove his doctrine in the most brutal way possible. June 6, 1918. Belleau Wood. The Germans held a fortified hunting lodge converted into a bunker complex. 3 stone buildings, 12 rooms, 40 German soldiers. The tactical problem was impossible. Clear the complex without artillery. It was too close to French civilian positions. Conventional assault, estimated 80% casualties. Mission time, 4 to 6 hours. Daly volunteered his shotgun team, 12 Marines, 8 with Winchester 1897s, 4 with rifles for overwatch. They hit the complex at 0445 hours before dawn. Daly's tactic was simple: speed and sound. Move fast, pump loud, make them panic before they can organize. The first building fell in 17 minutes. The Marines moved room to room like water flowing downhill. Every doorway, CHCK before entry. Every corridor, constant movement. The Germans never had time to establish defensive positions. By the time they identified where the Americans were already past them. Room 7 held 5 German soldiers with a machine gun. Perfect defensive position. Doorway was a fatal funnel. Anyone entering would be cut down instantly. Daly didn't enter. He stood to the side, pumped his shotgun 3 times, CHKK, CHK, CHKK, 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 then rolled a grenade through the door. Not to kill, to create chaos, the explosion, smoke, confusion. Daly rounded the corner low and fired twice. 9 pellets per shot, 18 total. The spread pattern covered the entire room. The machine gun never fired. The entire complex fell in 41 minutes. German casualties, 37. American casualties, 2 wounded, none killed. The after-action report was classified immediately, not because it revealed tactics, because it revealed that everything the military thought they knew about close-quarters combat was obsolete. 2 vídeos por dia sobre armas que autoridades tentaram banir. But the Germans weren't going to accept this quietly. September 14, 1908. The German government filed a formal protest with the United States through neutral Swiss intermediaries. The document still exists. 23 pages, single-spaced. The accusation was clear. Violations of the laws of warfare, use of weapons designed to cause unnecessary suffering. Read that again. Unnecessary suffering. This was the same German Empire that had pioneered chemical warfare. Chlorine gas at Ypres, 5,000 dead in 10 minutes, their lungs literally dissolved from the inside. Phosgene at Verdun, 85% fatality rate among those exposed. Mustard gas everywhere, blinding, burning, killing slowly over days of agony. They'd introduced flamethrowers, weapons that burned men alive in their bunkers. The Flammenwerfer M16 had a range of 18 meters and burned at 1200 degrees Celsius. Men didn't just die, they were carbonized. But the shotgun, that crossed the line. The German ultimatum arrived 3 days later, official, stamped, delivered through proper diplomatic channels. Any American soldier captured in possession of a shotgun or shotgun ammunition will be executed immediately upon capture. No trial, no prisoner exchange, summary execution. The threat was real. German military police distributed identification guides showing the Winchester 1897 ammunition, even the leather shell carriers Americans wore. Every German soldier received explicit orders. If you capture an American with any of these items, execute immediately. Then everything changed. The United States response came from Secretary of State Robert Lansing. The message was brief, professional, absolutely clear. The United States notes the German protest regarding shotguns. We remind Germany that we currently hold 17,000 German prisoners who were captured with flamethrowers or gas equipment. If a single American soldier is executed for carrying a shotgun, we will execute every single one of them. Sincerely, Robert Lansing, Secretary of State. Germany never mentioned the shotgun again, officially. But in the trenches, the war continued, and the numbers kept climbing. By October 1918, American forces had received approximately 20,000 Winchester Model 1897 trench guns. 20,000 doesn't sound like much in a war involving millions, but distribution was surgical. They went to assault units, breach teams, trench raiders, the men who fought at distances measured in feet, not yards. The tactical impact was exponential. Before the trench gun, clearing a captured enemy bunker required a minimum of 5 soldiers, usually 8. Casualties were expected, 60 to 70% of the assault team. After the trench gun, 2 Marines with shotguns could do what previously required a full squad. The math was devastating in its simplicity. One shotgunner could put 54 projectiles downrange in 9 seconds. A rifleman with a bolt-action Mauser could fire maybe 5 rounds in the same time. The firepower differential was 10-1. But here's what the official casualty reports couldn't capture: the human cost of that 40% reduction. Lieutenant Marcus Chen kept a personal log that was discovered in 2004, his October 28, 1918 entry. Before the shotguns, I wrote letters to families every week. 12, 15 families. Your son died bravely. After the shotguns, I write 3, maybe 4. The math is simple, but the weight is profound. I hold those letters, the ones I don't have to write, and wonder if the Germans understand what they created when they forced us to be efficient at killing them. But what they didn't know was that the shotgun's impact went beyond the battlefield. German military analysts working after the armistice calculated the economic impact. Each shotgun, costing $42, had effectively neutralized an average of 14 trained German soldiers, representing approximately $42,000 in training, equipment, and deployment costs. Return on investment, 1,000 to 1. One German staff officer wrote in his 1921 memoir, "We spent 2 years developing stormtrooper tactics, specialized training, unique equipment, elite selection. The Americans bought a hunting weapon from a catalog and erased our advantage in 8 weeks. This is the lesson of industrial warfare. Sometimes the solution is not complexity, but brutal simplicity." November 11th, 1918. Armistice. The weapon that had terrified the German Empire for only 8 weeks never reached its full potential. Most of those 20,000 trench guns arrived in France during the final 3 months of the war. Some units received them just days before the armistice. The Germans never had to fully face what the Americans were building, because what they didn't know was that US military planners were already designing the next generation. Semi-automatic shotguns, larger magazines, faster cycling. The Winchester 1897 was just the beginning. Then the world moved on. Treaties were signed, armies demobilized, the trench gun was warehoused, forgotten. But 23 years later, history had other plans. December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. Everything changed again. The United States entered a different kind of war, a war where the enemy didn't fight in trenches. They fought in caves, bunkers, fortified positions carved into volcanic rock. The Pacific Theater presented the exact same tactical problem the Western Front had in 1918. How do you clear a position when the enemy has the advantage of defensive terrain? The United States Marine Corps remembered the trench gun. Somewhere in a warehouse in Philadelphia, a logistics officer named Captain Robert Shaw received an unusual requisition. Request immediate shipment. 5,000 Winchester Model 1897 shotguns, stored since 1919. Destination, Pacific Fleet Marine Force. Shaw later recalled, "I thought it was a mistake, a clerical error. These weapons were 23 years old. Why would anyone want them for modern warfare?" Then I read the tactical brief. Cave fighting, close quarters, confined spaces. Suddenly it made perfect sense. The enemy had changed, the terrain had changed, but the problem was identical. By 1942, the Winchester 1897 was being pulled from storage, but it wasn't alone anymore. The Winchester Model 12 joined it, the Ithaca 37, the Remington 11, an entire arsenal of pump-action and semi-automatic shotguns, all 12-gauge, all designed for one purpose, dominating close-quarters combat. Guadalcanal, August 1942. Marines faced Japanese positions in dense jungle. Visibility, 20 feet maximum. Engagement distance, even less. Rifles were too long. Maneuvering was impossible. The Japanese had the terrain advantage. Corporal James Jimmy Matsuda, a Japanese-American Marine from California, was part of the first shotgun team deployed to Guadalcanal. His August 15th letter home described the reality. "Mom, the jungle fights like it's on their side. You can't see 10 feet. Your rifle barrel catches on vines. You're slow, loud, obvious. Then they gave us the shotguns. Suddenly we're faster than the jungle. The weapon doesn't care about vines or visibility. You just point, and the problem disappears. The first major test came at Henderson Field. Japanese forces held a series of fortified positions in the jungle, bunkers made from logs and earth, perfect defensive terrain. The tactical problem, each bunker had to be taken individually. Estimated casualties, 70%. The shotgun teams changed that equation completely. Matsuda's team, 4 Marines, 3 with shotguns, approached the first bunker at dawn. The entrance was narrow, 3 feet wide. A natural kill zone. 1 Japanese soldier with a rifle could hold it indefinitely. But here's what the Japanese didn't expect. The Marines didn't try to enter. They positioned at angles. Matsuda fired through the entrance without exposing himself. The spread pattern, 9 pellets covering 3 feet, meant he didn't need line of sight to the defender. The pellets found him anyway. The bunker fell in 40 seconds. Japanese casualties 3, American casualties 0. Then the Marines moved to the next bunker, and the next, and the next. The pattern repeated. By the end of the day, 16 bunkers cleared. Japanese casualties 47, American casualties 2 wounded. The after-action report noted something unprecedented. Casualty rates had dropped to levels not seen since the Western Front. The same weapon, the same principle, the same result. But what they didn't know was that the Japanese were already adapting. By late 1943, Japanese military intelligence had compiled reports on American shotgun tactics. Their countermeasures were sophisticated, deeper bunkers, with longer approach corridors to extend engagement distance, multiple firing positions, overlapping fields of fire. The Americans adapted faster. Tarawa, November 1943. Japanese forces had fortified the island with 800 bunkers, concrete, reinforced, designed to withstand naval bombardment. The Americans had to take them one by one, room by room. The casualty projections were catastrophic, 80% for conventional assault tactics. Marine Lieutenant David Shoup, future commandant of the Marine Corps, pioneered a new approach. Thunder runs, 4-man teams, all carrying shotguns. The tactic was audacious. Sprint through the kill zone while firing continuously. The physics worked because of the spread pattern. Running at full speed, a Marine could sweep his shotgun side to side, and the pellets would cover the entire corridor. Accuracy while moving was irrelevant. The weapon compensated. First Thunder Run at Tarawa, 06:34 hours. 4 Marines sprinted 30 yards through concentrated fire. They fired 16 shells total while running. All 4 made it through. The Japanese position fell 90 seconds later. Casualty rate for Thunder Runs, 37%, still high. But compared to conventional tactics, 78%, it was revolutionary. The math was brutal but simple. 63 out of 100 lived instead of 22. Inscreva para historias de tácticas que salvaron millares. But the real test came at Iwo Jima. February 19, 1945, 21,000 Japanese defenders, 11 miles of tunnels, 1,600 bunkers, the bloodiest battle in Marine Corps history. The island was a fortress. Every cave, every tunnel, every bunker had to be cleared by hand. The shotgun became standard issue for every assault team. Not optional, standard. Private First Class Leonard Zimmerman from Iowa kept a journal that was published in 1987. His February 23rd entry captures what the official reports couldn't. We call it bunker duty. 2 men with shotguns enter first. The sound, CHCK, CHCK, echoes in the cave. Sometimes the Japanese surrender when they hear it. More often, they don't. Either way, it's over in seconds. The weapon doesn't give anyone time to be brave or cowardly. It just ends things. The tactical evolution at Iwo Jima was remarkable. Marines developed specific techniques for different cave types. Shallow caves, less than 20 feet deep, required 1 shotgunner and covering fire. Medium caves, 20 to 50 feet, needed 2 shotgunners working in sequence. Deep caves, anything beyond 50 feet, required shotgunners with flamethrower support. But here's what made it effective. The combination of speed and overwhelming firepower. A two-man shotgun team could clear a medium cave in an average of 90 seconds. A rifle-equipped team needed 4 to 6 minutes. In combat, those extra minutes meant exposure to grenades, defensive fire, even cave collapses. The numbers from Iwo Jima tell the complete story. In cave-clearing operations specifically, shotgun-equipped teams showed casualty rates 73% lower than rifle-only teams. 73%. That's not marginal improvement. That's the difference between a unit being combat effective or being destroyed. 73% meant that in a squad of 12 men, 10 went home instead of 3. 73% meant families received letters saying wounded instead of killed in action. 73% meant the Marine Corps could sustain offensive operations instead of bleeding out on volcanic rock. The weapon that Germans had mocked in 1918 had proven itself again. Different war, different enemy, same fundamental truth. In close quarters, the shotgun was absolute. But here's what the official reports didn't capture: the psychological impact on the Japanese defenders. Captured documents from Iwo Jima revealed something extraordinary. Japanese commanders had issued specific warnings about the American corridor weapon. Training manuals described new tactics specifically for fighting Americans with shotguns. Extend engagement distance beyond 10 meters. Use grenades from maximum range. Never allow them to close within tunnel range. If you hear the metal sound, CHA, retreat immediately to secondary positions. The same pattern, the same fear, the same tactical adaptation. 27 years after the Germans, the Japanese were rewriting doctrine to avoid the 12-gauge. One captured Japanese officer's diary, dated February 27, 1945. The Americans have a weapon that makes our bunkers into tombs. We built these positions to withstand bombs and shells, but the shotgun doesn't attack the position. It attacks us directly. There is no defense except distance. In a tunnel, distance is impossible. Therefore, defense is impossible. But what they didn't know was that the weapon they feared was about to evolve again. Vietnam, 1965, a different war, a different enemy, but the same close-quarters nightmare. Tunnel systems under Cu Chi, hundreds of miles of underground passages. Urban warfare in Hue, room-to-room fighting in a city, ambushes in triple canopy jungle where you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. The shotgun came back, but this time it brought evolution. The Remington 870, the Ithaca 37, the Mossberg 500, and something revolutionary, the Remington 7188, a fully automatic shotgun that could fire 4 rounds per second. Wait, 4 rounds per second. Read that again. That's 12 shells in 3 seconds versus the pump-action 6 shells in 3 seconds. Double the firepower. Each shell still contained 9 pellets. That meant the automatic shotgun put 72 projectiles downrange in the same time the pump-action put 36. But here's what nobody expected. The pump-action stayed dominant. Why? Reliability. The semi-automatic and automatic shotguns were faster, yes, but they jammed. In jungle humidity, in cave dust, in urban debris, the pump-action never jammed. You could drag it through mud, submerge it in water, drop it off a cliff, it still worked. In combat, reliability beat speed. Specialist Thomas Doc Rivera, a Navy corpsman attached to Marine Force Recon, carried both. His experience report from 1968, I carried the automatic for firepower, pump action for insurance. 9 times out of 10, I used the pump. Because when you're in a tunnel with the enemy 10 feet away, you don't want faster, you want certain. Still, the automatic had its place. Tunnel intersections, large cave chambers, anywhere you needed to dominate space instantly. Rivera described the first time he used the Remington 7188 in combat. Cu Chi tunnels, 3-way junction. Enemy in all 3 passages. I held the trigger for 2 seconds. 8 shells, 72 pellets. The junction was clear. The weapon didn't just suppress, it erased. Here's the detail everyone misses. Tunnel rats weren't brave. They were efficient. The weapon made fear irrelevant. The tunnel rats, soldiers who specialized in clearing Viet Cong tunnel systems, developed specific loadouts. First man, pistol with flashlight for reconnaissance. Second man, shotgun for engagement. Third man, explosives for sealing. Fourth man, rifle for overwatch at the entrance. The shotgun wasn't the only tool, but it was the tool that made everything else possible. Cu Chi Tunnels, April 1967. A tunnel rat team encountered a junction point. 3 tunnels branching from a central chamber. Intel suggested 15 to 20 Viet Cong using it as a command post. The tactical problem: you couldn't know which tunnel held defenders until you were already committed. Sergeant Michael O'Brien's solution was brutal in its simplicity. His team fired shotgun blasts down all 3 tunnels simultaneously. The spread pattern meant each tunnel got coverage without needing to see what was there. Then they listened. Movement from Tunnel 2. That's where they focused. The position fell in 4 minutes. Viet Cong casualties, 12. American casualties, none. Stop. Think about what dragon breath means. The enemy named your weapon. The after-action report noted something significant. Enemy appears to have retreated from tunnels 1 and 3 when they heard shotgun fire, even though no direct engagement occurred. Psychological effect of weapon extends beyond actual use. But what they didn't know was that the Viet Cong were studying the Americans just like the Germans and Japanese had. Captured Viet Cong training documents from 1968 revealed detailed tactical analysis of American shotgun use. The countermeasures were sophisticated, extended tunnel sections to force engagement beyond effective shotgun range, sharp corners to prevent straight-line firing, booby traps positioned specifically for shotgun-carrying point men. The Americans adapted faster. New tactic: shotgun sweeps. Instead of traditional room clearing with precise corners and angles, teams would move through structures firing continuously. The spread pattern meant you didn't need to see the enemy. You just needed to cover the space. Hue City, February 1968. Urban combat. The citadel was a fortress, thick walls, multiple rooms, defensive positions everywhere, house-to-house fighting. The Marines were losing men at an unsustainable rate. Then they changed tactics. Shotgun teams led every assault. They didn't clear rooms methodically. They swept through them. Fire while moving. Cover every angle with spread pattern. Don't stop to confirm kills. The next team does that. Casualty rates dropped immediately. The 73% reduction appeared again. Different war, different decade, same result. One Marine squad leader's report captured the efficiency. Before shotguns, we'd spend 30 minutes clearing a building, lose 3 or 4 men in the process. With shotguns, same building in 8 minutes, maybe 1 casualty. The weapon doesn't make you invulnerable. It makes you faster than the enemy can respond. That's all you need. The Viet Cong called the automatic shotgun the Dragon Breath. Their doctrine manuals, yes, they had those too, specifically warned about engaging Americans in confined spaces. Maintain distance, use the jungle, never fight them in tunnels or buildings. The corridor weapon gives them absolute advantage. Distance is survival. The pattern was complete. 3 wars, 3 different enemies, 3 different decades. Same tactical conclusion. Don't fight the Americans close. Then everything changed, not through war, but through acknowledgement. Modern German Army Doctrine, published 1982, includes a section on close-quarters battle weapons. Primary recommendation for confined space combat: 12-gauge pump-action shotgun. The Bundeswehr issues them to every infantry squad now. The same army that had filed a 23-page formal protest. The same army that threatened to execute soldiers for carrying them. The same army that called them barbaric. They now issue them as standard equipment. The irony is perfect, but the legacy goes deeper than adoption. The Winchester 1897, that barbaric weapon from 1918, changed how every military thinks about close-quarters combat. Modern doctrine recognizes three distinct combat ranges: long range over 300 meters, medium range from 50 to 300, and close range under 50 meters. For long range, rifles, machine guns, artillery. For medium range, assault rifles, designated marksmen. For close range, shotguns, not alongside other weapons, not as an alternative, as the primary tool. Every special operations unit in the world carries combat shotguns now. Navy SEALs use them for shipboarding and room clearing. British SAS issues them for urban operations. Russian Spetsnaz has the Saiga-12 automatic shotgun. Israeli Sayeret Matkal carries Benelli M4s. Chinese Special Forces has the Norinco HP-9. The weapon transcends political systems. Because physics doesn't care about ideology. Master Chief Marcus Petty, a Navy SEAL with 4 combat deployments, explained it in a 2019 interview. People ask why we still use shotguns when we have advanced assault rifles, lasers, night vision, all this high-tech gear. The answer is simple. Physics hasn't changed. At 15 feet, 9 pellets spreading across a corridor is still more effective than one precisely aimed bullet. Technology doesn't beat geometry. The numbers prove it. In shoot-house drills, close-quarters combat training, shotgun-equipped operators have target engagement times averaging 0.37 seconds from target acquisition to incapacitation. Rifle-equipped operators average 1.14 seconds, 3 times faster. Not because of training, all special operators have identical CQB training. Because of the weapon. The spread pattern means you don't need perfect sight alignment, you just need to point in the right direction. In close quarters, when milliseconds determine who lives, that advantage is absolute. Modern combat shotguns are issued for specific roles: breaching, blowing through doors with specialized slugs, close protection, defending VIPs in confined spaces, shipboarding, clearing vessel compartments, room clearing, urban operations. Anywhere humans fight within 50 feet, the shotgun dominates. It's not tradition, it's not institutional inertia, it's physics. Fallujah, Iraq, 2004. A Navy SEAL team was clearing an insurgent-held building, room to room, urban combat. The tactical situation was identical to Hughes City in 1968, Iwo Jima in 1945, Belleau Wood in 1918. The team leader carried a Benelli M4 shotgun. When asked why he chose it over an M4 carbine, his answer echoed Sergeant Daly from 86 years earlier. Because at 10 feet, I don't need to aim. I just need to point and solve the problem. The shotgun solves problems. The building fell in 12 minutes. Enemy casualties, 9. SEAL casualties, none. The 73% reduction in casualties, first documented at Iwo Jima, held true in Fallujah, 73%. The number had followed the shotgun through 4 wars across 9 decades. It wasn't luck, it was physics. Non perca como armas primitivas dominam guerra moderna. But here's the final twist. That German protest from 1918, the formal complaint about unnecessary suffering, it still stands alone in modern military history. It's the only time a nation has officially complained about an enemy's use of shotguns in warfare. Not because the weapon violated any actual law of war. The Hague Conventions don't mention shotguns. Geneva Conventions don't ban them. International humanitarian law has no prohibition against them. They're completely legal under every international treaty governing armed conflict. Germany complained because the weapon was too effective. That's it, too effective. They mocked it as a hunting tool. They laughed at Americans for bringing farming equipment to modern war. They threatened execution for anyone carrying one. They begged neutral nations to intervene and ban it. They filed 23 pages of diplomatic protest, calling it barbaric. And today, German soldiers carry the exact same weapon into the exact same missions their great-grandfathers faced in 1918. The only execution that happened was the execution of their own tactical doctrine. The weapon they wanted banned became universal, not because it changed, because it proved that physics defeats everything. In 1918, they said it was too barbaric to exist. In 2025, it's too effective to replace. The Winchester Model 1897 didn't win through innovation. It won through being undeniable. The math was always simple. 9 pellets spreading across a corridor meant nowhere to hide. No amount of training could counter it. No tactical evolution could neutralize it. No technological advancement has replaced it. 1 weapon, 4 wars, 9 decades, 107 years of service, the same result every time. In close quarters, the 12-gauge is absolute. The Germans were right about one thing. It did change warfare, just not in the way they feared. It proved that sometimes the most devastating weapon isn't the most advanced. Sometimes it's just the most honest. Point at the problem, pull the trigger. Physics does the rest. If you're fascinated by weapons that changed warfare, not through complexity, but through brutal simplicity, subscribe. We publish 2 videos every day about the machines, tactics, and decisions that shaped modern combat. Because the lesson of the shotgun is the lesson of war itself. Complexity impresses, but simplicity wins. They called it barbaric. They tried to ban it. They threatened to execute anyone who used it. And now every army on Earth carries it. The weapon didn't change. Their understanding did, and that might be the most devastating lesson of all.